Welcome back to the series of working our way through Larry Horsfield's adventure, Dawn Patrol, converting that from the DAAD listing in the Yours Sinclair magazine to building it in DAAD Builder. Before I go any further, I made a mistake in the first video, which I need to address. I kept saying it was strange we couldn't go up the staircase from the first location. For some reason I totally missed the piece down here with the directions that you can go up from location 1. And having missed that, I also missed you can go down from location 5. So that is now amended in my adventure, and we can now properly go to the top of that staircase as we should have done from the beginning. So before we jump into the tutorial for the third section of this adventure, I want to go back to the original page at the start of his article, where he mentions somewhere down the bottom here, while I myself, having started adventure writing on the BBC using the quill, had no trouble understanding the PAWS manual, I do believe it tries to teach you too much too soon. Not sure I agree with that. I learned using the PAWS manual. The mini adventure contains instructions for 2 PSIs or NPCs, and also gives details for producing a graphic picture to illustrate one of the locations. I will state at this point that I think graphics, specifically location graphics, are a waste of time for this type of adventure. I'll not be referring to them at all in this series. I always used to like the graphics in adventures, so I'm not going to agree with that to start with. I also think he makes a bit of a jump in his series as well, which is what we're going to be covering today, which is changing the look of the adventure quite a lot. It's not necessarily one of the simplest things to be starting when you're writing your first adventure. But this is what we will be looking at today. And I will say that this has taken a little bit longer to come out than expected, because trying to make the amends that he has proved that my interpreter again needed quite a lot of changes. It was fine for basic adventures, but as soon as you started messing around with the text formatting and everything else, it didn't work very well. But let's go to the next series. So as he says, as mentioned last month, you cannot pick up the horse. To ensure this, we must place an entry in the process table 1 to limit the amount and weight of objects carried. I'll also show you how to place an entry in a certain position in the process table. Again, this is not quite the same with DAAD. We can just scroll down between the entries. We don't have to specifically say where we want to enter them. We can just type that in ourselves. So he says select process table 1 and type I. We don't need to do any of this, but he talks about enter ability 1010. So the conduct ability sets how many items you can carry, and also the weight you can carry. This is already carried out for us down in process 6. When the adventure is initialized, we set the flag for strength to 10, and we set the max we can carry to 4. But we can do that with the ability conduct. We're going to override the settings there in process 6 with ability 1010. In fact, we can just delete these altogether. And it's probably a neater way to do it with the ability conduct. So that now tells PAWS or DAAD that the player can carry 10 objects with a total weight of 10 units. So the horse is over that limit of 10 units, we won't be able to pick it up. So now we can test the adventure again, and this time there are objects in some of the locations which we can manipulate. However, the screen display looks a bit untidy. In locations where you can see an object, the message "I can also see" is printed on a new line with the object underneath, as in figure 2. So we go to test adventure, Can we go have a look? So it says I can also see a horse. And we go across into the tack room, I can also see saddle, bridle. He's saying it would look neater if the message was printed after the full stop of the location text with the object listed after it. Easily done. I'm not so sure it was that easily done. First of all, quit the test adventure. Amend system message 1 by deleting the colon at the end. So we go to messages and system messages, and then we want to delete the colon from the end of system message 1, and we want to make sure we leave a space on the end of that. Also amend system message 48 by pressing delete to get rid of the carriage return. So system message 48, just a full stop, we don't want the carriage return at the end. Then press space to put a blank space after the full stop. Now go to process table 1 and amend the first entry which we inserted as follows. And this uses flag 53, which again was something I wasn't looking at in the interpreter and needed changing. So if we go back to text editor, and we want to jump down to process 6, where we just put our ability 1010, and we want to add in here set, and then we want flag 53, and we want to set that to 64, which amends the byte in that flag. When this is turned on, it changes the way that objects are listed. We just jump back to test adventure now before we go any further. We can see that they are now listed in a long sentence. If we go to the tack room, it's all laid out in one sentence for us. So, having changed that, we now need to amend the 2 existing entries which determine how objects are displayed to delete the new line condition. So we go back to the text editor, and we want to go this time to process, I think it's 3. So this entry here in process 3, which prints a new line. So having printed the description of the room, it now adds a new line, and then if it's not dark, it lists the objects. He says what we want to do is delete that new line, so when the location is printed, it will list the object straight after the end of the location entry. And then we want to add a new entry down here underneath, and that new entry literally just has new line in it. So now if we go to test adventure, and we go to see something, so it says the courtyard is to the west, and straight away it says I can also see horse. Courtyard is to the west, so I think in the location we shouldn't need to add a full stop on the end of that description. No, it's not there. It's at the stables. Need a full stop on the end of that description. And he says always add a space after that full stop. And this is obviously the reason why he adds a space on the end of that full stop, is to just add a little gap. There's one there already. Just adds that gap for the system message to say what you can also see. So if we have a look now, we get the location description, and it says I can also see, and we've got the horse. So he says, however, if you were to get the torch and then type I to display your inventory, you'll see the object is still on the next line underneath the message. So if we say get saddle, and now we do I for inventory, because I have with me, and it's laid out with a gap saddle I am wearing, gap nothing. He's saying it's going to look neater if that's all as one sentence. There isn't a flag you can change to make inventory print out differently. so we need to manually change that. So we switch to the response table. So the response table is section 5 in DAAD, and we want to go down to where it says inventory. So it says actually first we go to system messages, and we want to change system message 10. So go to messages, system message 10, and he wants to change that so it says I am wearing. So then delete the colon and the new line and just add a space at the end of that. And I think we're probably also going to need to change. Do we change another one, or is it just system message 10? System message 9 I have with me. I think we need to change that one as well. Okay, so now if we go back to the text editor and we jump down to section 5 and we find our inventory message. So it says system message 9, list out what's carried, new line, so you need to add in a new line, system message 10, and add in a new line here. Then we jump to test adventure. What do we have already? We have nothing with us. So this isn't looking quite how I was expecting it to. I thought that would run onto a new line here. Maybe something in my interpreter that I need to change. So I'm going to leave that at this point. That's something I can look at in the future. So it now says, if you test the event to pick up a few objects, press I, the display looks even better. You may have noticed you continue to press I, the location text will scroll off the top of the screen. Some adventure players prefer this, but most like the location text to remain displayed while the inputs scroll underneath. This can be easily set with the mode condition. It can't easily be set with the mode condition because mode has changed since PAWS. As you'll see, mode here has two parameters to it. The mode has changed now. Only has one option you can add. Mode 1 uses the alternative character set, and mode with the option 2 will stop more appearing when the screen fills. Mode 3 will do both of those things together. The change with DAAD is that it now uses Windows, and so you'd have to adjust the Windows positions. You'd need to set as two windows. The first window would be where your location description goes, and the second window would be your text message window. Not going to make that change here. We're going to look at working with the rest of the adventure, and that's something we can possibly circle back round to at the end. The next thing he talks about is changing the font for the adventure. Well, we looked at already how we can use the font editor, and we can import a character set from elsewhere. We're not going to do that here either. That's an exercise that you can do if you wish to. So having done that, we're now going to look at adding some more things we can do to the adventure. So having improved the look of our adventure, let's put in some gameplay. As the plot says, your helmet and chainmail are hidden somewhere, which is why in the initial at table they are not created. To find these, we must search or look for them. We will imagine your helmet has been hidden under the bench in the guard room and your chainmail in the straw in the stable. We'll have to search the straw and look under the bench to find the objects. Also, in order to see in the armory, we need to be able to light the torch, which you can do in the guard room from the fire. Go to the vocabulary table and insert the following verbs and nouns with the numbers as shown. So if we go to the vocabulary table, and the first ones are the verbs. Do we already have a verb 36? We don't. So let's add a word in there, which is going to be search. We're going to add that, and we can add another word, which is light. In fact, we want to do add plus because we want to add another word in after that, and that is going to be extinguish. We can add that as well. So now if you go to the nouns, he's saying you don't really need to worry about the numbers of these. So we can just add those in as we go. So we want a bench, going to add plus, going to straw, add plus, and fire, add. Now go to the message table and insert the following messages. So we go to the message table and you need the user messages. So we want message 8, so we're going to add a new one. I'm going to just copy and paste these across to save typing those in. So we can use the new feature now, which is to add a label to that. So we can label that found under bench. We can label this one, say search straw. Poke into fire. Found nothing. And see nothing. Okay, now if we go to the response table, which as we know is process 5, and we want to be able to look under the bench. So let's go past our direction ones, open the door, we shut the door, north, so before the built-in entries, we want look, and then bench, for a preposition of under, and we want to say if we are at location 7, we want to blank flag 12. So let's go to our defines table, and we want to add in some new flags. We want to add a flag which is 12 here, but isn't going to be 12 this time round. This is going to be look under bench. It's probably actually going to be what was under the bench, your helmet. Let's call that found helmet. It's going to be flag 254. And we want another one here, which is search the straws. We're going to add another flag. I'm going to call that one found chainmail and make that flag 253. And we're going to jump back now to process 5. And we're going to say we're at 7. We now want to, if, oh sorry, this is checking the flag. So if this flag is, so found helmet, if that is 0, then we want to display message, and our message wants to be that we found under the bench, and then we want to place 2 at 254, and we want to set that flag now, which is that we found the helmet, and we're done on that one. And then we want to do something similar for the straw. We want to look, and we don't want to search straw. And we want to say if we're at location 3 and flag 13, which is not flag 13 now, this is going to be found chainmail. Then we want message 9, but this isn't message 9, this is going to be search straw. Then he wants any key. Create object 3. We want to set the flag that we found the chainmail. And we're going to describe, or in this case we're going to restart to re-describe the room for us. These two entries show ways of revealing hidden objects. Note the use of flags to prevent the entries being implemented again if the inputs are repeated by the player. If the player did repeat the input search straw, the response would be I can't do that, which isn't very good. So insert the following two entries in response to give a more positive responses, and also amend the examine entry as below. So let's go down to where we don't have an examine entry, but we have a look entry. So we want to change look to be the final entry. So it's going to do a restart at the end of that anyway, but we'll leave the restart in there. So when we look, we now want us to have message, and this is going to be found nothing, see nothing. He wants a search, and this is going to be message, and this is going to be found nothing, and go for done. Actually, we'll leave that as a done, not a restart, otherwise we'll redraw the room again. And you want to examine entry in here as well. And this is going to be the last of those messages, which was message 12. Oh, so that one's see nothing. Oh, it's the same as the look message, that's why, okay. And we go for done after that. Okay. Use of the underline symbol, we can ignore all of that, that's to do with PAWS. Now we need to insert some more messages. So go back to the message editor. We're going to add 3 more messages. The torch is, with a space at the end of that. We're going to add unlit, and we're going to add lit. So I need to change that to be unlit. I've missed an L out there. So we want to give that a label. So the torch is, we'll just put in what the whole message is there. We'll say unlit, and we'll say lit on there. So now if we extinguish the torch and light the torch, so the text editor, we jump back to process 5. That's where we've been adding our entries. We now want a extinguish torch. And we want to process. Okay, so we're going to be using new process tables 3 and 4. So I missed that line out. Jump down to the end here. We're going to add new process table here, which is going to be Pro 7 and Pro 8. Let's go back to where we were. Distinguished torch is going to be process table 3 and 4. So this is going to be reversed. It's going to be process table 8. And we want a done. And then we want a light torch. And we want to go to process table 7 for that one. So now we're going to process table 3. We're not going to process table 3, we're going to process table 7. And we're going to enter. These will just have the blank entries because it doesn't work the same way as PAWS. We've carried 0. We want message, and this is going to be message number 13. The message the torch is. Then we go message, and we want message 15, which is lit, and we want a done. Then we want a very similar entry here. So carried 1, so we swapped over the torches here. Okay, so we're trying to light it. If it's already lit, we don't need to light it again, so we won't be swapping it. This is if we're carrying the unlit torch, it will now be swapped over for the lit torch. So we just need a message here, and that message is going to be message 10, which is poke into the fire, and we now swap that. So we swap over the 2 torches, swap 1 for 0, and we're done. And then we have a system message at the end, which presumably if we're not carrying either of those, the system message will be printed to say we can't do that. So system message 8, and we're done. And then the entries for process 4, which we use to extinguish the torch, is going to be process 8. Reversal of what we have here already. So the carried 0, message 13, and message 4 done. So let's copy that one across. So carried 0, we want message 13. Message 13, which is the torch is, and message 14, which is unlit, and we're done. So we have another entry here, which is going to be, if it's carried, we want to 0. So we want to check that flag 0 is 0. We're going to swap over 1 and 2, and then we're going to say OK. Then we need another entry, So it's not okay. We don't have okay in okay within PAWS. We don't have that in DAAD anymore. So it's going to be done. And then we want to add this entry, carried 0, not 0. So this is checking whether it's dark or not dark. So I'm going to add this entry in. So we're going to copy and paste again because there's some similarities we can use. So we have carried 0. We want not 0. Not 0, 0. We want to add a system message in, which is system message 15. Then I have a pause for 75 seconds and a half. We're going to swap. We've already got the swap here, haven't we? We're going to swap 0 for 1. The lit and the unlit torch is over. And we want a restart. So this is going to plunge us into darkness. So we're going to have a dramatic pause, and then it's going to restart and say everything is dark. And then we have a sysmess, so the same as here, which is going to be our last entry in that process table. Okay. So there are two entries which deal with extinguishing the torch, because if you put it out in a bright situation, there's no need to re-describe the location, whereas in a light location, we need to show it's now dark. System message 8 entries in each table print. You can't do that if you're not carrying either torch. After inserting all the above entries, test the adventure again. After picking up the torch, input light torch, extinguished torch in various locations, both carrying and not carrying both torches. Now when you enter the armory, you'll be able to see and pick up the sword. So let's test the adventure. So if we go up from the first location, we can see an unlit torch. We get the torch, come down, and I think we have to go to the guard room. In the guard room there is a fire, so we should be able to light the torch here. Poke the end of the torch into the fire, it bursts into flame. So if I look at my inventory now, I have with me a lit torch, which is good, that's what we want. So if we go down to the armory, open door, press any key to continue, we go south into the armory. The armory is a cool dark chamber with all manner of weapons in racks on the wall. The door north is open. I also see a sword, and it looks like I had caps lock on when I typed that one. So let's get the sword. Okay. Now if I go north and south. Oh, straw's here, isn't it? So let's search straw. And I can also see a coat and horse. Got the coat. I now have the coat in my inventory. I've got a coat and a sword. Okay. So let's jump back to objects. I want to find, where was the sword here? I want to change that description to say sword, so we don't have the weird caps issue. Come out of there. So let's go, jump back now to the next section in the tutorial, because we can light the torch. It says now the player of this adventure may try a different input to light the fire or light the torch. For example, poke torch in fire as suggested by the message that appears on screen when you light the torch. We should try to anticipate such inputs from the player. Insert the verb poke into our vocabulary. So let's go to verbs. We're going to add word and we want poke. And we're going to add that. And then we want to give it a synonym, insert, and also hold. So we want to add word again, and we want insert, and that was 39. Go add plus, and we're going to have hold as well. And we're going to add, just add on that one. Okay. Any other words you think might have the same meaning? Switch to the response table and insert the following entry. So let's go to the text editor, and we're going to jump down to section 5. Get to where we're adding in our sections here. And we want to have poke torch and prep in, and we want to check noun 2 is fire, and then we want to save it at location 7. Then we want to process 3, which was actually process 7, and we're done. Personally, I'd be tempted to leave the prep in out and just have poke torch fire, because you might say poke torch at fire. There's so many different options. If you're very precise in what you're looking for, it's much harder for the player to continue, but we'll leave this as it says in the tutorial. While we're in the guard room, we'll see there's a notice on the wall. We'll use this to illustrate another PAWS technique that a normal full-size adventure can save you memory. Regarding the notice, there are 2 things you can do with it: examine it or read it. Now, in some adventures, you might find the author has used a different message for the response for each of these inputs. Insert the following message. The notice on the wall reads "no spitting in the fire." So let's go to our messages. We're going to add a new message, which is, I'm going to copy and paste this, "no spitting in the fire." I'm going to label that "no spitting." Okay. Now insert the verb read into the vocabulary. So go back to our vocabulary, and we want a verb, and we want to add a word. We want read. I'm going to add that in. Verb number 40 and the noun notice. So we're going to add word, and we need to change it to be a noun. Say notice. We're going to add that. So we've done that and that. Switch to the response table, insert the 2 following entries. So we looked at this when we did the ticket adventure, that ability. So we'll jump back down to process 5 and go to where we're adding our entries in, which is here. And we looked at doing this in the ticket adventure, where we actually change the flag which holds the verb or the noun. And that allows us to use the same, allows us to use different words but have the same outcome without having to type in the same command many times. So let flag 33 equal 40, which is the word we've just added in. So it's now going to change examine to be the same as read. And our next entry underneath that, so we don't have a done, so we just drop through to the next entry, which is going to be read notice. And we're going to say at location 7. We then want message, which is going to be our new message, no spitting. And we're then done. Of course, if you tell the player they can't spit in the fire, the first thing they're going to type in is "spit in the fire." I don't know whether they're going to cover that in this adventure, but that's something you probably would add in a full adventure. So it says the first entry tells PAWS make flag 33, which holds the verb of the player's last input, change to value 40, which is of course the number for the verb read. As long as there is an entry read notice, it will be acted upon. You can also do the same for any word in the entry using flags 34 to 45. See the PAWS manual for which words they refer to. think it might actually tell us at the top in the defines. Yeah, so in the define list we have F-verb 33, noun 34, adjective, adverb, and then we have noun 2 and adjective 2, pronoun and pronoun adjective as well. So any of those flags can be changed to do a similar thing. If you now test the adventure, you can do everything in the game except saddle and bridle the horse and ride it. Okay, so if we now test that adventure, we should be able to see if we can do that with notice. Let's go west, and we're going to go north. We should be able to read the notice, and we should also be able to examine the notice. And both of those work. Okay, so it brings us to the final installment of this PAWS mini adventure programming article. Insert a blank tape and save your file. You can go to the top and you can just save that there, which I'm going to do now, so I don't lose my progress when I come back to this. Okay, so I've now saved that. It says I'll see you next month. Well, in fact, I will see you in the next installment of this. I'm just going to check ahead. I think this is the last installment. Yep, so I will see you for the last installment in the next video.